All right, so you're ready to make Google Ads work for you, but you're working with a pretty small budget,
Definitely a common challenge.
for sure. So today we are going to be taking a deep dive into a YouTube video. It's by Ben Heath, and it's called How to CRU-esh Google Ads with a Small Budget. He's got some really interesting and counterintuitive advice, especially if you're working with under $3,000 a month.
Yeah, he doesn't just rehash the usual advice. He knows that small businesses, they really need a different approach. It's about being smart, not about trying to spend as much as the big guys.
Yeah, and he starts off right away by talking about focus. Small budgets, you have to focus in on just one type of campaign to avoid what he calls spread too thin syndrome.
Right. You see it all the time. Small businesses, they feel like they have to try everything all at once. So they're doing search and display and performance max, and they end up just spreading their budget way too thin. It just doesn't work. Ben actually recommends starting with search campaigns, even over performance max, which everyone's talking about these days.
Right, it seems counterintuitive.
It is.
But for our listener, I know you have really good website data, even if you don't have that much conversion data yet.
Exactly.
So search campaigns can leverage that website traffic data
They can.
to give you a really strong foundation.
Yes, and Performance Max is great, but it really thrives on lots of conversion data, which you might not have yet when you're first starting out. And then beyond just focusing on a single campaign type, Ben also emphasizes choosing your absolute best performing product or service to promote.
So no spreading love across your whole catalog, at least not right away.
Right, exactly.
And this is great for our listener here. I know you're currently running ads for a few different product lines.
Right.
Ben suggests choosing the product or service with the highest return on ad spend, or the lowest cost per lead, and then really pouring your budget into that.
Yeah, it just makes sense to focus your resources on what's already working, to maximize profitability early on, and then as your budget grows, you can start testing out other offerings.
So you're not ignoring those other products forever. It's about prioritizing to get the most impact with limited resources.
Exactly.
Okay, now this next tip is super relevant for small businesses with local customers. Location targeting.
Right. A lot of small businesses don't even think about this. But narrowing your geographic focus can really save you money.
Especially for you, since your business is mainly in listener city.
Right.
So instead of trying to reach everybody everywhere, you're focusing your ad spend on the people who are actually likely to visit you. And that means you can get hyper-targeted, including location in your keywords and ad copy.
All right, so you get higher relevance and higher click-through rates.
And no wasted clicks on people who are miles away.
Exactly.
So you get more bang for your buck.
Okay, so now we come to my favorite part of the video, keyword strategy.
Oh, yeah. This is where he throws us a curveball.
He does.
He actually suggests starting with less expensive keywords, which most people would say is totally wrong.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive. But his logic is solid. With a small budget, you really need to focus on gathering data so you can optimize your campaigns. And less expensive keywords get you more clicks for your budget, which means more data points for you to look at. You're essentially buying data with your initial investment.
So it's not about being cheap. It's about being strategic with your data acquisition.
Exactly.
And then once you've got that data, you've spotted the patterns. You've optimized your campaigns based on that data. Then you could start incorporating those more expensive keywords.
Right. You bring them in gradually.
To really boost profitability.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, so now let's talk about another key element of stretching your budget, your ad copy. And using that ad copy to pre-qualify your leads.
Yes, this is where it gets a little sneaky, but in a good way.
It is. Ben suggests that you should use language that might actually seem off-putting to some people, but it deters clicks from people who just aren't the right fit for your business.
Exactly. It's all about filtering out the tire kickers.
I like that. Tire kickers.
And attracting the people who are genuinely interested in what you offer.
The highly qualified leads.
Yes.
Who are actually likely to convert.
Right. So, for example, he talks about including specific price ranges in your ad copy to make sure that you're not attracting people who are just looking for the cheapest option.
That makes sense.
Or you could mention your location right up front so that people know you're local.
Right. So if somebody's searching for a listener's business type in listener city, and they see your ad that specifically says you're local, they're much more likely to actually click through and book an appointment or whatever your conversion goal is.
Exactly.
And speaking of conversions, Ben has a really interesting perspective on optimization.
He does.
He's all about speed and decisiveness.
He is.
He uses this phrase, trigger happy, when he's talking about pausing underperforming elements of your campaigns.
Right, like if a keyword is not performing as well as others, even if it's still bringing in some conversions, you need to pause it
Yeah.
and redirect that budget to the keywords that are doing really well.
Exactly. You can't afford to let things linger. When you have a small budget,
Right? You need to make every dollar count.
be ruthless with your optimization.
Exactly.
This whole idea of being trigger happy really emphasizes how important data is in Google Ads.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about gut feelings. It's about looking at the numbers
Hmm.
and making decisions based on what they tell you.
Right. And all of these strategies that we're talking about for small budgets, they make that data-driven approach even more crucial.
Because every dollar counts.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah,
click,
okay.
every conversion,
Yeah.
it all feeds into this bigger picture of figuring out what's working and what's not.
Right. So even though we're saying be trigger happy, make those quick decisions, those decisions are still based on data.
Yeah, you're not just randomly pausing things.
No, you have to look at the data. Google Ads gives you so much data. The trick is knowing how to use it.
Right. And that's where Ben's expertise is so helpful. He takes all of those numbers and he translates them into advice that anyone can understand.
Yeah, he doesn't just give you rules to follow. He explains why those rules work.
So you can adapt them to your own business.
Exactly. It's like he's giving you a map and a compass.
To navigate this crazy world of Google Ads.
Right, and that's what makes this deep dive so valuable.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a way of thinking strategically about Google Ads.
And making it work for your small business.
Even if you don't have a ton of money to spend.
Right. Budget doesn't have to be a barrier.
All right, so let's recap some of the key takeaways for our listener,
That sounds good.
just to make sure everything's crystal clear.
Okay, so number one, focus. Focus on one campaign type to start with. Promote your best performing product or service, and consider narrowing down your location targeting,
If it makes sense for your business.
if it makes sense.
And remember that tip about starting with less expensive keywords. It's not about being cheap. It's about strategically gathering data.
Right, you're buying data to fuel your optimization.
Exactly.
And then as you get more data, you can start incorporating those higher value keywords to increase your profitability.
Right. And we also talked about ad copy and how you can use your ad copy to pre-qualify your leads
Yes, be specific, even a little off-putting.
to attract the right people.
Right, you don't want to waste money on clicks from people who are never going to convert.
And finally, there's that trigger-happy optimization approach.
Oh, yes, my favorite.
Be proactive. Pause those underperforming elements, even if it feels a little bit early.
Right. Don't wait for statistical significance, especially when you're working with a small budget.
You need to make every dollar count.
You do.
Okay, so before we wrap things up completely, there's one final piece of advice from Ben that I wanted to share.
Oh, yeah. He ends the video with a great question.
He does.
A real call to action.
He asks, how can you apply these strategies to your small business to see success early on and pave the way for future growth?
It's brilliant.
It is.
He takes everything we've talked about and he flips it back to the listener.
Right. So it's not just about listening to us talk about it.
It's about taking action.
So we've given you the key takeaways from Ben's video, but the full video is still a fantastic resource.
It is.
It goes deeper. It has more examples, more nuance.
Yeah.
But for our listener who's busy running a business,
Right. Who doesn't have a lot of time?
this deep dive has given you the essential information to get started with Google Ads.
The tools to succeed.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to outspend the competition. You just have to outsmart them
Be strategic.
and use data to your advantage.
Like playing chess.
Ooh, I like that.
You have to think a few moves ahead, anticipate what your opponent is going to do, make the most of your resources.
And in the game of Google Ads,
Knowledge is power.
so keep learning, keep experimenting.
And don't be afraid to ask for help,
Right, there are tons of resources out there.
including us.
Exactly. All right, so I know you mentioned that you're running a Performance Max campaign right now, and we talked about how it's important to focus on one campaign type initially.
Right.
So given that, would you consider switching to a search campaign to take advantage of all that website data that you have?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's a tough decision. It depends on how comfortable you are with Performance Max and what kind of results you're seeing.
Right.
If you're not really getting the results you want, or you just feel overwhelmed with it, switching to a search campaign could be a good idea,
Makes sense.
especially since you have that website data to leverage.
Right.
But if you're starting to see some decent results with Performance Max, and you feel like you're getting the hang of it, sticking with it for now might make more sense.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer here.
It all depends.
It's about what works best for your business and your specific goals.
And remember, you can always change it up later.
Right.
Google Ads is all about testing and tweaking and refining.
So true.
And don't forget, Ben's video has a ton of great information in it if you want to dive deeper.
All right, it's definitely worth a watch.
But even with just these key takeaways, you're well on your way to success with Google Ads, even on a tight budget.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to have a huge budget to be successful with Google Ads.
You don't.
It's about being smart with your money.
And using the tools and strategies that work best for small businesses.
So keep learning, keep experimenting, and good luck with your Google Ads journey.
We're here to support you every step of the way.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.